Can a Wattpad author become a published writer? With over 1 million reads on Wattpad, I'm here to see if that dream's possible. Follow along if you want to see if it is too. Today, guys, I wanted to take you through my Pinterest boards and adding pins to my Pinterest boards for my story. I don't think this video is going to be a plot video. I'm probably going to get into the plot of my story in a different video, but I kind of want to show you guys what the vibes of my story is, the aesthetic, so you can kind of see it before we get into the plot. So you could see I really want this story to be historical 18th century. Overall it's a romantasy, but it does have some types of historical elements. I'm not going to be 100% accurate, I think, mainly because of the romantasy, but also I wouldn't consider myself like a complete historian. I'm sure there's things that I'll miss out on and stuff, but I really like history, and I wanted this to kind of take place in the 18th century, in the Rococo era, and see how that turns out. As you can see, I've split up my boards. I actually have, this one's called 18th Century Peasant Woman. And I named it this one is because my main character, Charlotte, is actually a princess, and she ends up going a journey with Owen where she has to disguise herself as a peasant. And they end up going to, a normal town, so I had to look up normal outfits, basically, or everyday outfits, common outfits that people are going to wear. I did the same thing for our other character, Owen, where I had to look up kind of more normal outfits, what he'd be wearing. There's a big distinction. Some of these I'll pass by, and it's not because the outfits were bad or anything. It's for 18th century. They're all about those tricorn hats, which have 3 points, whereas some of these photos are more Victorian, and you can tell because sometimes top hats come up, or like the waistcoats are a little higher, and they're not wearing breeches, which are 18th century pants. This is my history knowledge, by the way, guys. I hope it's enough to carry this book. I'm obviously still on a first draft, so it's not too big a deal at the moment, but I like to have some historical accuracy, even in a romantasy novel. I like to have that. So I like to look up photos of this. I'm aware that some of these photos too are AI. That's okay. This is more for the vibe and aesthetic of my story. I'm trying to find things that work for it. I also, again, looking up at like soldiers and other outfits and things, there's another top hat photo. It doesn't work for the time period. I'll try, sometimes I might accidentally grab something that's not quite 18th century, and I apologize. This was the other fun part, was trying to find nobility and royalty dresses. I love this era, guys, for dresses. They're just so big and elegant, and they're very in your face, but there's so many nice details in the gown and their little straw hats. It's such a cute time period. I really wanted this story to be this time period. I definitely in the future though want to do Victorian and medieval stories. I don't just do historical romantasy novels though. I've done contemporary, obviously. What am I saying? Yeah, I've done contemporary, I've done more modern, but it's just for this story, it makes sense. Once again, I'll get into a plot in a different video. That's probably going to be a whole nother thing. But yeah, this is how I like my Pinterest boards. Fun fact, a lot of royalty, or not even royalty, but men back in the 18th century, pink was considered a masculine color, and blue was more for ladies, actually. So if you see any pink suits here, yeah, that was very much of the time. It was a masculine color. Same with the shoes. Men had a bit of heels to their shoes, which honestly, that just kind of reminds me of dress shoes now that men wear. They got that bit of heel or whatever. But yeah, men actually wore heels before women. So another fun fact. But yeah, this is basically the setting of my story. It's gonna be 18th century. It's, think Beauty and the Beast. It's gonna have that kind of Rococo style look to the characters. It's their setting, it's where they are. I definitely recommend, if you're writing a story, to get a Pinterest board. It is so helpful to have a reference. Especially a photo or like an image that can inspire an idea, those are the absolute best. I love those. I also have here the palace. I was looking up a lot of images for inside the palace because, like I said, main character's a princess. She grows up in a palace. Also found out that a palace and castle are two different things, so don't get those confused. But yeah, this is what I was thinking for the palace. I really like architecture too. Not as much, I think, as the clothing or the historical aspect, but there are just so many cool things for the architecture. Like, I found out there's the ceiling frescoes are like the paintings on the ceiling that are there that are so detailed. I wanted to include stuff like that in my story. Just any kind of little architecture I can kind of get into the story, I thought would be really cool. I'm kind of a detail-oriented person, so I definitely might have details like this in my book. I'd like to. If you look up my old fanfics or Wattpad, you might not see that as much. It doesn't seem like I'm much into detail. Those stories, as a writer, I focus more on characters, so those were strictly about the characters. Those weren't even like about the descriptions or the imagery of the places. Those were about them. So you might not find it as much there. I think now, especially as I've gotten older, things like history and details in the outfits, in the settings and architecture, I care more about them now than I definitely did in the past. So now I'm looking for outside the castle because I do have a few scenes where I have the characters in the gardens, there's like a hedge maze, things like that take place, and yeah, the palace is, did I say castle? I hope not. The palace, just how it looks from the outside. I especially love images where it doesn't just take place in like a sunny, day. When there's like rain or snow or anything else, it makes it so much more interesting, and it makes you remember when you're writing a story that you can have other seasons, you can have more weather, you can make it rainy. And making it rainy suddenly makes it way more moody than it was before, and just adds so much depth to the story. That's why I like to have these images to like just see. And even if they're AI images, like I think I'm grabbing some here, yeah, it's AI image, you can still use it for your story as inspiration. There's no problem with that. I definitely think AI images work well for fantasy just because they have an unrealistic like glaze to them. So it works really well in that kind of retrospect. Now for the town, I had to look up 18th century towns because my characters go on a long journey and they cross by many different types of towns throughout the story. And just getting like the kind of towns and cities and villages right is also a big part of what I want with the story, like the cobblestone roads, the buildings, like just things like that. These are all things I feel like if you're necessarily writing a contemporary novel, it might not matter as much for architecture. However, definitely look up images of whatever. If you're in the city, look up a city with like buildings, any city where it could take place. Again, I have like 18th century Europe, so of course I'm just kind of looking for 18th century towns. Again, though, I'm not being too specific. It's not exactly Europe. Well, it's in Europe, but it's like made up towns and stuff, which is probably where the fantasy aspect comes in with it. I also started just looking up Romantasy kind of as a theme because I love looking up images like this. If you don't have a Pinterest board and you're writing, please get one. These were the best to see. They inspire any scene in your head. They really do. And I love the images. And again, if they're AI, it doesn't matter because you're going to make up the story. So using like, a fake image for this, as long as it like evokes a feeling, it's very nice. It works for the story. I'm a big advocate for Pinterest boards, any kind of visual outlook of it. I'm a visual learner, so seeing them definitely helps a lot. Random and not related to my story, but did any of you guys read the American Girl doll historical books growing up? Because I read the Felicity book. I reread it as an adult. One of my favorite, and oh my god, did I ship Ben and Felicity so much? Like, it's headcanon for me that when they grow up, they end up getting married. Like, they just end up together, okay? And if you've read that or even seen the movie, oh my god. Here's my main character, her name's Charlotte. And why I wanted her to look like this is I've noticed that people like that have this kind of look to them with the blue eyes and the pale skin and dark hairs, they look really good in blue. And you'll notice that this girl is always kind of in blue, even though it's a different girl each time. And the whole thing with like the kingdom that she's from, it uses a lot of the color red. That's like the colors of the kingdom. They're like very rich red colors, which don't match her skin tone. And I kind of wanted her to gradually move to more of a blue color palette throughout the story to complement her skin more. So that's why I chose that complexion for this character, because I wanted that to be her shift in the story too, and to show her change. Now Owen, my love interest here, he honestly kind of gives off, I feel like, Flynn Rider vibes. But yeah, this is what I wanted him to look like. I want to have him to have dark eyes, kind of like browny, bronzy kind of hair color. I want him to have that look. 18th century, you know, the longer hair and stuff. It was much harder finding, I think, images for Owen, but this is basically what I wanted my board to be, what the theme of my story is, the overall aesthetic. You guys can kind of get the vibe for it, I think. If you're into more romantasy with slight historical elements, you know, like that's definitely the story I'm trying to tell. I definitely like detail in the architecture, in the world building. I'm going to try to do my best to do that. Obviously, when I make edits, because I definitely will be making edits to this story once draft 1 is done, I'll include a lot better stuff, but yeah, this is how my Pinterest board looks. Let me know, guys, what you think of the overall aesthetic of my story so far, what you think of the characters so far. This is their look. This is what they're gonna be like. I think I'm gonna keep it this way. It took me honestly a while to settle on their physical looks. I had Owen blonde at one point, but I changed that. And then I had Charlotte with red hair at one point. I changed that as well, because I thought, again, with the whole, her kingdom colors are red and she goes to blue was great for her character. Yeah, this is where we are with the story. And as far as the Pinterest board and the aesthetic for it, I hope you guys enjoyed this and are looking forward to hearing about the plot of my story. And if you guys have any ideas or anything else you want me to post about writing, feel free to comment. Thanks. Bye.